Welcome back to 10 Cents Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Breout, and I have Adam Nilsson on Zoom. And then we also are lucky enough to have a 5-time U.S. Rally Class champion hailing from the Portland, Oregon area, and currently the pilot of the Dodge Caliber SRT4, and she has her own team, Jankowski Racing, and so we have Karen Jankowski.
Hey, nice to see you guys. Nice to meet you. Yeah, Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show. It's our pleasure to have you on. We were just kind of chit-chatting, getting started. So basically, I don't know anything about rally, so this is really perfect for me because this is the great opportunity to talk to someone that's kind of the expert and has a lot of success in it already. And so all of my questions are basically newbie questions, and I'd like to also kind of learn about the successes you've had. And then, like, even just as we just started the show, we've had chit-chatting before the show started. I think this is going to be a really good, easy podcast.
Well, I'm looking forward to kind of educating you guys a bit about rally. It sounds like you guys don't know much, and it's my passion. So I'm looking forward to kind of educating you and teaching a little bit about it and learning more about you guys too.
Perfect. Yeah, so we've been doing the show for like 4.5 years, almost closer to 5 years now, and we've always kind of had the goal of being real broad with everything that we're into. Like, we've done like some drifting, we've done like time attack, everyone for like pro drifters,
motocross even.
What's that?
We had a motocross guy.
Some motocross, super moto guys. You're our first rally person, and this is perfect for us.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to be your first.
So we can just kind of dive into it. I've talked about it on the show before that we've done like a time, speed, distance rally, our road rally in the past. So our listeners that have been listening for quite a while actually are aware of that. But you don't do that. Yours is more, I guess, would be called stage rallying, right?
Yeah, it's so there's kind of 3 basic types. You have road rally, which you were talking about, which I've actually participated in. Portland, Oregon this area has a lot of TSD, time, speed, distance rallies. And that's really kind of the oldest rallies in the U.S. And then you have stage rally, which I participate in, which is on closed roads, typically in the forest, in just normal cars. And then you have rallycross. So you've got kind of basically 3 disciplines in essence.
Okay. So locally, our rallycross has actually grown a lot in the last probably year or two. We actually appointed an SCCA board member that's in charge of rallycross just because we've had that much success with it. And like the nationals are down in Indianola. So it's kind of cool to see
they're
that
here in our region.
Yep. So it's cool to see
really
that grow.
So, I've thought it was kind of funny that we are like the Rallycross Nationals for SCCA are right here in our backyard essentially, and we don't really have a Rallycross program. So,
well, that is kind of interesting. It's like I said, it's rally in the Pacific Northwest is really strong. There are, especially in the spring and summer, there's a Rallycross every other week. I should say weekend. And it's really nice because a lot of people get into rallycross. It's really easy to get into, kind of low entry as far as cost, and you don't need a cage in your car, and you can just kind of go and have fun with whatever you have. And so that tends to get people kind of excited, and then they find out about stage rally, and then they want to build a car. So we get a lot of new people that did rallycross get into stage rally.
Is that kind of like a natural progression? Do you see more often?
It is pretty normal, I would say. Now, granted, you get a lot of other people that either spectated a rally and they got excited and built a car or bought a car, or they have a friend that's doing it, or they watch it on TV. So there's kind of a lot of different ways you get into it. And in the U.S., we've got 2 sanctioning bodies. We have NASA. And we also have American Rally Association. So we have a lot of rallies, stage rallies in the U.S.
So then are these stage rallies, the only thing I can think of is like WRC, where it's like these huge events. I think those are usually like over the courses of like days. So for your stage rallies, are these over long distances, short distances, single day events, multiple day events?
Yes, yes, and yes. So you have what we call a regional rally, and we have a national rally. So a regional rally is usually more of like a club event. So it'll be typically a one-day event, usually on a Saturday. Don't have to take a lot of time off from work. And it typically, just has, kind of a very compact schedule. And then you have a national rally, which is part of a national championship. You also have the regional championship, and that's usually a 2-day rally. And it depends a little bit on where you're located. Some of them are actually 3 days, like the Portland, Oregon one. Oregon Trail Rally is a 3-day rally race, but typically it's 2 days, usually Friday, Saturday all day, or Saturday, Sunday.
And then are these on like public roads or I guess trails, for lack of a better term? Or I guess how is that even set up?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a combination. So in some areas, it is public roads that we get permits to use and close down for the rally, for the race. And then some are forest roads. So you're dealing with the state or the county or what have you. So it kind of depends on where you're located. We have Olympus Rally, and, we have a lot of forest roads there, and in Oregon, we have more private roads. So it kind of depends a little bit. And it also, the way that the stage rally goes is, so I have a Dodge Caliber, and a lot of your listeners probably know someone that has a Dodge Caliber, or maybe they even have one because they sold a lot of them. And so you literally, can race whatever you have. Now barring, of course, you have to get a roll cage and proper safety equipment and things like that, of course. But you don't have cars that don't look like cars, like in some racing. It's very much what you or your friends drive or into, you'll see out, in the middle of the forest racing flat out.
Yeah, for sure. I
just want to say real quick
that
I absolutely love the fact that you race a Dodge Caliber.
Thank you.
So I have a front wheel drive Dodge. Mine's significantly older, but I have a front wheel drive Dodge of my own, and that just makes me so happy.
What are you driving?
I have an '84 Dodge Omni.
Omni, yeah. So back in the day, Omni actually there was quite a few people racing or rallying that. So Omni was a pretty popular platform in stage rally in the U.S.
I wheeled and dealed and was never successful on actually buying one that was ran like in the late 80s to mid 90s was ran in stage rally in Michigan. I tried really, really hard to buy it off the guy, and we had basically agreed on a price, and we were just trying to find a time for me to come get it. And then he just went dark on me, and I was never able to get a hold of him again. And I was really bummed out about it, but it had like long travel suspension on it, and it was caged, and it was ready to rock. And I don't know what I would have done with it, but it was a pretty good price. It would have been a fun little car to have.
Yeah. So fun fact on Omnis, I actually I have some friends that race that car, and a Shadow. I actually rallied it in a Shadow once. Never raced in a Colt, but there's a few Colts out there. And my road race car is a Neon, so I have a Neon SRT4. And awesome. I actually won my first national class championship in a Dodge Neon SRT4. Not the same one, but so we're definitely a Dodge family. My husband worked for Dodge Motorsports for many years. He built these cars. I'm very fortunate, that he's so knowledgeable and such a just badass car builder and crew chief, and allows me to, just focus on the racing part. And I like racing something different. In stage rally, if you watch WRC or other kind of racings, you kind of see the same cars all the time. In the U.S., that's a Subaru. Lots and lots of people have a Subaru. And on social media, a bunch of people always ask me, well, why don't you just race a Subaru? And I said, well, everybody's got one. Like, I want to race something different. So you don't get much more different than a Caliber SRT4. They didn't make very many of them. That's a blessing and a curse. And it's a blast.
That's so cool. I love that so much.
Yeah, you guys are going to get along great.
Yeah, we have Robbie and I have a good mutual friend that endurance races an older Neon ACR that used to be a Neon Challenge car.
Yep.
And so The front wheel drive Dodges are strong with us, despite Robbie's kind of disappointment in it, I think.
Oh, I'm not that bad. I have cars everybody has. I got a 240SX and a 350Z. I'm not original at all.
No, I was waiting for you to say you had something boring. Those are interesting.
They're fun. They're a dime a dozen, but they're fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole point, right? And I think that's one of the reasons rally racing's so popular in the U.S. and it's huge globally. So it's very interesting that here in the U.S. we've only kind of just touched the surface a little bit with the popularity of the sport. In Europe, as an example, it's top 3 sport. You've got football, i.e. soccer. You'll have Formula One typically, and then you'll have rally. And so the U.S., and there's lots of reasons for that, we haven't quite got to that point, but it's really growing. And the ease of getting into the sport is one of the reasons I think, it continues to grow.
What reasons do you think it is that it's more popular over there? Is it just like the availability of places to do it, or what is it that you think makes it more popular there?
I think it's probably a lot of things. I don't know that it's necessarily just one, believe it or not. I think it's just that in Europe, especially where they have a lot of the races, there's a lot of people. And where we have it, because we're so populated, you're not able to have it like downtown Portland, as an example, right? Kind of close to me, or, Des Moines. You've got to be out in the middle of nowhere. Away from people and that type of thing. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. I know in England, they do a lot of tarmac racing. So they literally will like race through towns and things like that. And I think just the legality aspect of the U.S. makes it a little hard to do those kind of things.
I always wondered if it's something like that. Like
the lawyers are more involved here.
Yeah. Our culture just doesn't work well for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we even struggle to find autocross places, and that's, that's magnitudes of scale simpler, and we struggle with it. So
you're looking for a parking lot, basically. And even that is getting harder and harder to find, unfortunately. Yeah.
So I'm sure that's got to be one of the biggest struggles for rally organizers, is just a place to do it.
And not only am I a competitor, but I also help organize my local rally. So Oregon Trail Rally is part of the national championship. And you're right. That is a big issue, is where are you going to race? And getting the people that live on those roads or close to those roads, get them excited and okay with it. And there's a lot of barriers, to just going out and driving your car flat out on the dirt or gravel.
Yeah, it's like an autocross, you can kind of set it up with a handful of phone calls, but I would imagine a rally is going to take months, if not, or weeks or months to get everything planned. I mean, is that a proper assumption?
It's usually once it's over, you start planning for the next year.
Okay.
Is that like city hall meetings and the whole 9 yards, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of hoops you go through, to get the proper permits and approvals and then a support and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of volunteers, and that's the other piece. You do have a lot of people that are excited about rally. They come and volunteer at the events, and then they buy a car or build a car. So you do get a lot of people that, just come and help out. And then they're like, oh my God, what is the sport? And they get super stoked, and then they're hooked.
Yeah, I can see that. I think if we had more rally locally, I think we would have been bitten by that a long time ago. I know Adam for sure would have.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I brought me up to the Pacific Northwest. I'm a California girl. And we have a few events, down in Southern California, but not too many. And the Pacific Northwest, we're blessed because we have any given year, 3 to 4 rallies just in this area. And within driving distance, if I include Canada, 6 to 8. So it's a really good place to be, especially for this kind of racing.
So you talked about the volunteers. Is there like a lot of corner workers and stuff in these races, or how does that how does that all work?
Well, if you envision a race that's in a forest, okay, so you think of a forest road, it's usually kind of a one-track road, maybe 1.5 wide. And let's say you have 50 cars that are going to be driving down this road as fast as they can, one car at a time, usually a 1-minute interval. So you do need a lot of workers because typically the average stage, that's what we call that road you're racing on, is 10 miles, sometimes 15, could be 20, 25 miles. And so if you have side roads, you'll usually have a volunteer there to make sure somebody doesn't come driving on the road. So there's so much safety that goes along with it. There's people that start the cars. There's people that are at the end of the road finishing, at the finish. So it really does kind of take a tribe of people, to make all of that work.
So we struggle.
And it's the best way to actually see a rally up close and personal too.
So that's the same way with corner workers for like road racing too. I mean, we don't need near as many as you guys would, but it's still we're kind of struggling to get enough. I can only imagine how difficult it could be on some years to get workers for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know my local track, which is Portland International Raceway, same thing. They still struggle to get course workers. And my husband actually just went a couple weeks ago to work a race because they're, just really needing people, especially COVID. COVID's made it quite difficult.
Absolutely. So it seems to be like with road racing, once you kind of do less driving, it seems you do more corner working. So like that older age group is the ones that's working. Well, they're the ones that probably aren't going to go out in the middle of COVID. So this year's been kind of weird when it comes to staffing a road racing event.
Yeah, stage rally, I would say our workers, well, they're a mix, right? But I would say very young and enthusiastic. And then we also have, older people that are, retired and love the sport and want to give back.
Yeah, definitely. So how are these like marked out? Like, is there signs or is this more of a, here's your map, you got it?
Yeah, it's funny. In all of motorsports, there's not really a sport like rally because it's a team sport. You have a driver and you have a co-driver, and each person in the car has a very distinct, role. So typically a day before the rally starts, we go and pre-run the roads together. So driver and co-driver go and pre-run the roads. We write pace notes. So we write descriptions to help us when we're driving flat out. We'll give the direction, we'll give description of the corner and so forth for that whole duration of the road. And then during the race, the co-driver reads that back as we're seeing it, which helps, me as a driver, figure out what I need to do. Is the road off camber? Is it going to fall off? Is it really tight and I need to slow down way before? So when you're driving a road like these are so complicated, more information, the better. And then there's a lot of timing and scoring and things that go on with our racing. And so the co-driver keeps up with all of that as well to make sure that we get to the parts that we're racing on time, we get to service on time, and that type of thing. So there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, if you don't like teamwork, you will hate rally racing. But if you like to work as a team, and the team isn't just driver and co-driver, the team is a crew as well. So we're not at a racetrack. When we do service, we're typically in like the neighboring town. It might be fairgrounds. It might be a high school parking lot. It could be a lot of different things, but we're all set up in that area and it kind of moves around. And so your service crew is so important, and we have a very limited time to fix things. So if you break something and you only have 1 or 2 people and they don't know anything about cars, well, you're probably going to be in bad shape. So it's very much a team sport, and that's why I like it.
How big would your team typically be? Like if you go for a weekend, is it usually you and like 5 people, or is it you and it's a couple of people?
Well, it depends on your budget. So, the bigger teams, they'll have like for one car, driver, co-driver, and they may have 4 or 5 crew for that car, service crew working on the car. My team, I'm a little smaller, right? So I've got driver, co-driver, crew chief, and 1 or 2 crew people. And, so it kind of depends on your budget a little bit.
That makes sense. And then are these courses, like when they send you off, it's not like an autocross, but like I assume you're staggered when you get sent off, like every minute someone gets to go, or I guess how is that set up?
Yeah, so you drive up to the start line, which, like I said, if you picture a forest road, you have you've transited to that point, you've got the start line, and then they're going to count you down, and it's 1 car at a time. So I'll go, and then you wait 1 minute, and then you go. So the kind of the fun, but also the challenge of that is that I can drive as fast as I possibly can, but I have no idea how you did until later on. I might think I just like set the world on fire, and then I find out your stage time is, 20 seconds quicker, so it's, you don't know, because on a track, how you're doing, right? You can see the other people. With this kind of racing, you really don't know. So that's also challenging and fun too. So
let's say the guy or the driver in front of you makes a mistake. I mean, is there a chance that you could catch them, or is it spread out that far that you realistically wouldn't catch them?
Depends a little on how big the mistake is.
Fair.
So, if they spin out and they're trying to get moving, remember it's 1 minute apart, right? So it kind of depends a little bit, but we've got safety that kind of helps with that too. So it doesn't happen too often.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was just kind of curious, like with autocross, like, someone spins out or something else, they'll throw the flags, and then they get a rerun. So, like with a course as big as a rally, I would imagine that's not quite as simple.
No, it really isn't. But it's all about safety, because there's a lot of potential for issues, right? Going off the road or catching another car or any of those kind of things. So, we're very safety driven. Yeah,
and then your cages is like. I'm picturing just like a ridiculous over-the-top bars everywhere type cage. Like, is that how those cages are, like really built over the top, or is it more close to like a road racing cage?
Well, since I have both, I can actually answer this pretty easily and say it's very different than a road racing cage. There's a few things that are in essence the same, but ours are more about impacts. And so you've got a lot of the door bars, which on the road race car, I don't really have that much. And you have more cages and hoops in the back as well. So I would say there's a lot more roll cage on a stage rally car than especially a road race car.
Which would make absolute perfect sense.
Because in a road race, you're not typically dealing with a tree or something large that you're hitting. Well, most road races. Yep. But in stage rally, you're typically the most common thing you might hit. It could be, a boulder, a tree, a fence, so a large stationary object.
Yeah. And like usually on a road course, even on like if you're near a wall, you're not going at the wall. Whereas in rally, it would seem like, you take a corner and all of a sudden the tree is right there. So I could see why that would be super necessary. That and the picture I have up right now is you. I think you're co-driving this one, but the car is probably 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, there are a fair amount of jumps. And I've been racing since 2006, and I've co-driven for much of that time. I started my own race team last year. It was always a goal of mine. I just never got around to it, kind of thing. And I had a really good friend, Henry Jankowski, who was a mentor of mine and a longtime stage rallyist, and he died very suddenly of cancer. And he had always pushed me to drive. If you want to drive and you want to start your own team, then by gosh, do it. And so when that happened, I said, okay, I've got no excuse. Like, I really need to do this. I've got a car, so I don't have any, issue with that. It's not like I have to go find one or build it. Just never got around to it. So I started last year. So I did 3 stage rallies last year, and the goal was to do at least that much or more this year. But COVID has caused a lot of cancellations, obviously, like a lot of motorsports. So a little bit abbreviated season, but that's okay. You know, we've made a few upgrades to the car with that time. And so we'll kind of use it as a little bit of a blessing.
Would you say that it's easier to get the start as a driver or at like doing the path that you did where you were a co-driver first? Because to me, it almost seems like it'd be easier to drive first and you would almost have to be more knowledgeable as the co-driver. Or is that just a misconception?
It's a little both, if I'm honest, right? So look, if you have, you make a good living and you've got money and your desire is to drive, then your biggest barrier is just buying a car. Like there's lots of rally cars for sale. You could buy a rally car, today, and the next rally's in 3 weeks and you can go enter. So it's not real hard to do that. Now, yes, you have to have safety equipment and, a few things, but in essence, it's really simple. Co-driving is simple as well because you don't have to have a car to do it. So, for example, this race in 3 weeks, I might need a co-driver and say, hey, what do you think? Do you get car sick? No? Okay, because that's number one. And are you good under pressure? And, and be able to, read something at high speed. That's, that definitely gets a lot of people and just want to have fun. And so it's not super hard. And actually, when I started in rally, I was supposed to be a driver. I went to a rally school. I was all ready to go. And then a team needed a co-driver like 4 days later after I finished the school. And I said, okay. And that's kind of how I've always been. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot, try anything once. And then I just liked it and kept going.
So is there a way to for you as the co-driver, do you have to learn the way that the driver wants to hear the turn coming up or like the terms or, just like the general knowledge of it? That's kind of, even that alone seems kind of mind blowing to me because we've watched videos, many times where it's just like, you've got the co-driver calmly reading, like doesn't even look like they're looking at the road, but they're looking at this paper, calmly reading what's going up next. And the driver's just doing their thing. And I'm sitting there going, there's no way I could keep up. So it just seems like there's so much.
I don't think you look at the road, do you? Like that's probably part of that is not looking up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the longer you do it, the less you look, but you still do a little bit to kind of get acclimated to where you are and things like that. But there's a cadence. I mean, as a co-driver, I think the biggest challenge is, and you're spot on, is figuring out what the driver wants to hear. There's no right or wrong. That's the funny part. The right or wrong, if there is any, is just figuring out what you want so that I don't give you what you don't want. So that could be speed. So I'm too fast on calling the notes or too slow, or I get lost, or I get frazzled really easy. Or I get car sick, so there's kind of a lot of parts and pieces, that can really make a difference.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know if it was an interview I was reading of yours or like one of the podcasts you did, but you were talking about like you would tell them like the turn, whatever, and then you tell them actually what gear they were going to be in. So it's just to me, that was a lot.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a gear, but in essence, it kind of works that way, right? So if you are driving down a straight line and you see the road's going left, okay?
Yep.
It might be nice to know what speed you're probably going to be going on that left turn. So we have a 6 is just like a little teeny, like you don't even need to lift. It's just a little bit of a corner, right? And it goes all the way to a 1, which is basically a hairpin. And there's, obviously a lot in between. So some people, definitely say, okay, it's kind of what gear you're in. But if you have a sequential or things like that, it's not quite, that simple. But it gives you kind of a basic knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a whole separate language. So I think once you learn it, it's second nature. But yeah, to me, it's like speaking Chinese. I don't get it right away.
Well, and it's funny you say that too, because especially people that come over, from other motorsports, they're like, oh my God, this is so different. right? Everything is different. You're not at a racetrack. You're out in the middle of nowhere. You have somebody blabbing at you there, giving you information. There's all these rules and things you can and can't do. And you're not racing against another car, so there's like so many kind of different things to it. But then again, that's actually a lot of those things are what makes it so addictive and fun.
Yeah. I could see it just being such a rush because it's not a car next to you, but it's just like the entire course. You're driving at 10 tenths and the tree is touching your mirror the whole time. It's just super intense from start to finish.
It is. And so it's definitely a blast, and it's not hard to find out if there's local rallies in your area. Like I said, there's NASA and that's NASA Rally Sport, and there's American Rally Association, and that's kind of the two main ones. And you can go onto their websites and see what's around. And if you're at all excited or interested about it, then you can sign up to be a volunteer and be close to the action and check it out.
So I'd be interested in doing volunteer work. I mean, that's basically how I got started doing any sort of motorsport in general, because Adam kind of tricked me into doing a corner working day. He's like, "Hey, we're going to the track." Okay,
it was fun though.
It
was a lot of fun.
I had a blast.
You were happily tricked.
Yeah, it was a great day.
We were like the only two that aren't the regulars there that day, And so they were like so excited that we were there and we were willing to be a part of it. They're like, "You guys want to hold the flag in the pace car?" And like, "Hell yeah, we do. That sounds great." So we got to do like all kinds of funny little things with it. So it was cool.
Yeah, it was my first real introduction to like race flags and like the radio and all the stuff. So like they're like, "You want to be on the radio?" No. I don't know the words. You be on the radio. I'll hold the flag. You just tell me what to do. And
exactly. But
yeah, you learn quick. I mean, you get the flow for everything. And then when you're on track, me years later, I'm looking at it going, "Oh, I remember that. I learned a lot of that stuff that first day."
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the fun of it too, right? Is just learning new things.
Yeah, that's me. I always want to try new things. Like I'll get bored with something right away, and then I want to go try something new. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of been just whether it's sports or motorsport in general. I've always kind of progressed into something else almost as soon as I got halfway competent at something. I was like, all right, now we got to get bad at something again
and relearn something.
Exactly.
I think if we really wanted to do this, there's one down by Lake of the Ozarks.
There's the
big rally somewhere
Gambler?
in Missouri. Well, no, that's
different.
Totally different.
Is it
totally different?
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
The Missouri Rally is 100 Acre Wood, and now it's going to be Show Me Rally, and that is, as I'm looking at my calendar, that's October 2nd and 3rd.
Oh, that's coming up.
It's out towards like Potosi, Salem, that whole area.
I think that's down there. In your in-laws' neck of the woods.
I think it is.
I'm not mistaken, right?
It is actually, and I can tell you those roads are windy and fun, even not on
and very gravelly and very fun. But for your listeners that want to go and volunteer, at least until COVID calms down, there's no spectators right now for obvious reasons. But you can still work the rally, and so it's actually gotten a lot of people that kind of normally spectate. Actually to come work a rally, and I think we're going to see even more new rallies as a result.
Oh, I'm sure.
That would be cool.
Well, that's funny that you say, like, the SCCA did that this year, like, no spectators, and we're all looking at each other like, when did we get spectators? So
spectators?
What are you talking about?
So there's going to be 3 less people at that event.
Great.
Cool.
So no wives and girlfriends. Got it.
I was just going to say no family, basically. Yeah, I'm going to do a road race event in next month at PIR, Portland International Raceway, and it's the same thing. They said no spectators. I'm like, I don't think this one, because it's an endurance event. It's 8 hours one day and 9 the other, or something like that. And I'm like, is that a problem?
It's funny because I've actually spectated an endurance event, a local one here, because we were like, Robbie and I were both kind of like, we don't want to look like idiots when we're trying something, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go and like spectate, or we went and we flagged events and stuff like that so that we can kind of get a feel for how the things work so that we don't look like morons when we show up to participate.
I like that. So, that's a good idea.
So I have some noob questions still. So
okay. Fire away.
So like when I'm watching, like I understand like the Isle of Man TT is not the same, but like when you see those videos or like rally videos, it seems like the spectators are hanging off the trees next to the course. Is that
dangerous?
an issue at all?
No. In the U.S., it's very different.
Yep.
We have a lot of lawyers in the U.S., and so no, we have the way it works, at least in the U.S., is we have spectator areas.
Okay.
So we have specific places on the course that the event organizer deems as safe, and that's where we ask spectators to be. Some events will actually have like hot dogs and hamburgers and food, or a couple of them have like bleachers or whatever. And then some are just matter of just kind of hanging out, I remember there's an event in Canada that they actually set up bleachers in the spectator area and they sell food and drinks, and it's just wild. You come around and, you've got, I don't know, probably like 500 to 1,000 people, and you're like, holy crap, in the middle of nowhere. But, that's how we kind of keep people safe, is the big way. So, because if you've never been before, you don't know how to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, for sure. I could see like if you don't have an area where people need to be, they're just going to kind of wander, and you just kind of got to corral them over here. It's like, it's safe here, stay here. You won't get hit probably here. You're fine.
Yeah, basically. And some events have gotten so creative, they'll do a VIP bus. So they'll sell, a ticket, and it includes like food and drinks. So they have like a special spectator area, for the bus. And that's nice because if you've got family, maybe a little bit older parents or something like that, or grandparents, they're not going to want to go like tromp around in the woods, and this gives them opportunity to kind of be comfortable and still get to see a race or, enjoy it.
Definitely. What about animals? Here,
yes.
Here there's deer everywhere here. Are there, is it a problem up by you guys?
Well, let's see. I've definitely seen deer, moose, bears. That's kind of the three main ones I've seen. I was in Canada last year racing at Pacific Forest Rally, and there was cows, and it's just an area that's an open range, so there's not much you can do. And luckily it was during the pre-running of the event, during recce. It wasn't at full speed, but I come around this corner and there's just this whole huge pack of cows standing right there, and I slam on the brakes and I just tap the butt of one of them, and he just turns around and looks at me like, what? And they just sit there. So, cows are definitely a challenge. We typically try to get them behind a fence and things like that. And, but you're going to have wildlife. There's some pretty famous videos out there of some deer incidents and things like that. And, knock on wood, I've been fortunate, but moose are probably the scariest part. That's out towards like Minnesota in that area, and they're really big. Yeah,
that'd be bad for everybody.
Yeah.
That'd be like hitting a tree.
Yeah, that speed. Oh, my
probably
gosh.
worse.
Yeah,
I think the moose is bigger than the tree.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be bad. Yeah, I was just curious. Like, you had a picture of of the cow that you were talking about, so I was just curious if that was more common than I would have realized.
Yeah, we try not to be, but you never know.
I would imagine things like rabbits and maybe even birds, squirrels, so like smaller animals would probably be a more common problem.
Actually, not so much. I think they get scared.
I suppose.
Loud sounds and things like that.
We just were at an event in Colorado a couple weeks ago. Someone got a rabbit on track.
That's because the rabbit got in the oval and then couldn't find its way out.
There's only two ways into the oval, and when it's that populated, they're not going to go back out.
Yeah,
and he got hit by a car.
Yeah, he got smashed.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of race videos with that, but not rally. So
yep. So does your car have a like a handbrake like a drifter would, or I guess how do you get the angles that you do, especially with the front wheel drive car? it seems like you rotate the car really well in some of the pictures you have posted. It just so I guess, are you guys basically drifting those corners, or how do you keep the speed going?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, you are on gravel, right? So it's a pretty loose surface. And yeah, we have a handbrake. I have a nameless, actually, handbrake. And it works really well because you can give it just a little tug on a really, sharp corner and get the car kind of rotated around. So, yeah, that's pretty common. Sometimes it's a little bit on your cornering angle and how early, you're taking the corner or how late. And tires, and then also how loose the surface is. Is it hard packed dirt, or is it, fresh gravel? So, it's interesting because stage rally, we kind of race in all of those conditions, and then we'll race in the rain and snow and anything. So there's not much that stops us.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, again, I've been basically stealing pictures off your Instagram and Facebook for the video. And you got everything from like just a beautiful, nice summer day to like snow and rain, and it's just everything across, and your car's covered in mud. So yeah, the reason I asked is about the handbrake is because like when we talked to the drifters, it's like the handbrake's not used for braking. It's specifically for speed control. For them, it's tandem, so you're trying to match the speed. Right. Whereas, I remember seeing videos and like seeing your pictures and stuff too. It's just, I would assume it has nothing to do with actually braking, just more of just putting the car where it needs to be to make the turn the way you want it to go.
Yeah, getting the car to rotate is definitely, super important.
Okay. Oh,
speaking of car parts setup, I got a question about that while we're there. Tires are like the thing in grip racing and road racing. And so is that such a big deal with rally? What tires do you guys, what's kind of like the go-to thing? Is there specific tires? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and yes. And obviously it depends on the conditions, right? So you probably see some of the pictures on my social media of the rally in Canada last year where we started wet and then it snowed and then it was ice. And I didn't have ice snow tires. I wasn't planning on seeing ice or snow, but it turns out that it was just enough of a cold storm and the elevations were really high that we're racing up. So you kind of do the best you can is the short answer. There's a lot of different kind of tires. We don't have a spec tire. Like I'm dealing with that with this road race I'm preparing for is there's a spec tire. It's like, it's kind of a pain. But there's no spec tire in rally. So you can basically run whatever. Now, having said that, you'll probably see like studded tires in World Rally Championships, so WRC. We don't use those in the U.S. So when you see like a snow ice event, you're not using chains or studs. You're using typically an ice tire.
And then I would say, are compounds like a thing, like 40 tread wear up to like 200 tread wear, like obviously is pretty common for like road racing. So does tread wear come into play as well?
It does. Like my husband's really big into tire groovers and really kind of cutting the tires to what you need for the surface. And I mean, that's one time I think is a really big competitive edge because, he can, based on my feedback, what I saw maybe in the first running, he can cut and groove those tires to make them maybe a little bit more open, if it's muddy or, if the road conditions are kind of changing and things. So, there's a few little tricks, that we can use.
Huh. That's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never thought about like grooving your own and stuff like that. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how else are you going to do it? Right. And use every performance advantage you can. And that's one of the ways to do it.
So does the Dodge Caliber, or I guess the SRT4, does that have any sort of aftermarket support, or is this a lot of custom stuff for you? Like, I mean, if you're grooving tires yourselves, and are you also have like a machine shop that you're building, your SRT4 parts for?
Yeah, so the Caliber SRT4 is complicated because a lot of the parts only can come from another Caliber SRT4. and they only made like 3,000. So, it's a pretty small amount of the overall calibers were SRT4 ones. So for example, case in point, I hit a tree last year, needed a new hood and bumper and a bunch of those things. The bumper I can use off a regular caliber, but a hood has to be an SRT4, one. And a bunch of the parts as well need to be a, caliber SRT4. And they're getting a little bit harder and harder to find. A lot of people that have them, they basically kind of stance them or do whatever, kind of custom stuff and all of that.
So many stanced caliber SRTs out there.
Actually, believe it or not, there is a lot of them.
Many.
Yeah, considering they didn't make that many, right? So per capita, there shouldn't be that many, but there is. And the same thing with neons, right? I mean, there's that whole kind of neon vibe, the neon SRT4. So, I've only seen a caliber drag race. That's the only thing I've ever seen. Definitely nobody's, taking it off-road. So a lot of, getting back to your question, so a lot of the stuff is kind of custom. And it's been a bit of a challenge, because I had a welded diff as an example on the car, and that sucked. There was nothing good about that. But nobody makes a limited slip for a caliber SRT4. Nobody. Not a soul.
Huh. But not the same trans as the one in the neon? Are they different?
They're different. And
Really?
You can't just take it off another car. So finally, fast forward, a year, finally got a company to make a custom one. So it's those kind of things that are tough. I mean, look, that's the blessing and curse, right? Whenever you race something no one else has, no one's done the work for you, and so, that's kind of the challenge sometimes.
Then, kind of taking a step back to the limited slip, you said I read somewhere that you were using a what's it called, a phantom grip in the interim when you went from a welded to a custom one. And I've seen I've seen this before. Like I've seen them advertised. It's like a $250. I don't know even how to explain it, but like it goes in between the gears of an open diff and basically treats it like acts like it's a limited slip. So I've read mixed reviews, and you actually are using it to race. So I was very curious what type of results you had with that.
Well, I will just say that the caliber SRT4 on calibers in general, have a little challenge, which is torque steer.
Oh yeah.
Torque steer was not great for that car. And the SRT4 ones, it's even worse. So part of the challenge was, I go from a welded diff where the car is trying to kill me literally all the time. Like you could never do the same thing twice with that car and get the same result. So 1 minute it's trying to steer off the cliff on the left. The next minute it's trying to steer off the cliff on the right. And you never knew what it was going to do. So we tried the phantom grip because that was the only thing we could find to see if it could help with that. And it really didn't. I mean, in some applications it might be fine. It was terrible for us.
I can see that because I've been researching stuff for the Z because I had the viscous limited slip, and basically if you take it on track and get the fluid inside of it hot for like a second, it becomes an open diff. Well, so now I have cars with open diffs, and the option is you can put a $15 shim in and basically just mesh the gears, which kind of treats it like it's almost like it's a welded diff, or you can spend $1,500 on a really nice LSD. But then the phantom grips kind of come up every once in a while, and I didn't really plan on going that route, but I was always just kind of curious if that someone that actually had used it, what their opinion was of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to totally like bag on it because, it might be good for someone, but I'll just say not for me. I mean, so I tried to, I'm using Willwood brakes. So I've been working really closely with them, and they're great people and really have been helpful to try to, at least dial in the braking challenges that the car has and try to minimize some of the torque steer it has. And so, it's a lot of R&D, that goes along with it.
That seems like it'd be right up your husband's alley too, though.
Absolutely loves it. Well, most days. I will say that trying to get the car a little more predictable has kind of stumped him a little bit. I mean, we're getting there now, but I think it was definitely a source of frustration, especially last year, because he would go out and drive it because he'd been stage rallying for a really long time and everything you could think of. And, he's got all the experience and he's like, I just can't get it to, I can't get it dialed in, so, but it's been fun, I really enjoy it. And it's a fun platform too.
So yeah, it looks like the pictures and the stuff that you have posted in the videos makes it look like it's really effective and works well. So you're definitely on to something, it seems.
Yeah, I'm not like naive to think that there's going to be 10 calibers next year, but I will say there's a guy in Canada that's about done building his, so there'll be one up there that's racing rally, which is cool. I did rallycross this car for a while, so that's kind of, where what it was doing up until I started stage rallying it, and it was okay. It's really heavy. Yeah, and if you rallycross, the lighter, smaller car, the better. A big, heavy caliber is not necessarily your perfect autocross or rallycross car.
I have a friend that for a while was just racing rallycrossing his like daily driver, completely bone stock Chevy Cavalier, and he did surprisingly well in the stock front wheel drive class. And I think it's just it's a relatively light, simple vehicle, and he was just able to go out there and drive it well, and that was, I think that matters more than even in other forms of racing. I think driving is it's harder to buy your way into winning, I would think.
Well, it's especially for rallycross, you see a lot of people out there that race what they have, right? Like kind of what you're talking about. I've got a car that I use for rallycross, and I'm using it for rallycross. But if you wanted to actually win at rallycross, you would build a certain kind of car for that, right? And so, and there's a guy locally that's got, this little car, and it's super powerful, and it's like the perfect rallycross car. And he just whoops everyone, but he purposely built it for the rallycross, and that, I think that makes a difference.
So for like suspension and stuff on your car, is that like a coilover setup, or is that just, again, like a custom one-off thing?
It's pretty stock, actually.
Really?
Most of this car is stock. So like the engine's stock. There's certain things like we're using like Bilsteins on it,
okay,
and stuff like that. But a lot of it is pretty stock.
So is that kind of class driven? I guess, is this like the SCCA where there's like 300 classes, or is it 12 classes?
No, thank goodness we don't have that many classes. No, we kind of have, all-wheel drive and two-wheel drive. And within both of those classes, then you have subclasses. But, the subclasses, like mine's considered like an open two-wheel drive. Even though it's got a lot of stock stuff on it, it comes down to engine displacement and so forth. So we've got probably maybe six classes. So it's really not too bad.
No, it's not bad. That's a little easier to keep track of.
Yeah.
And then are these in general relatively high horsepower cars that are competing, or are these, like the 300 horsepower range?
It kind of depends, actually, because you can literally rally anything. So you have, there's a guy who's got an RX-7. There's a Honda Passport. There's a Toyota RAV4. There's a Subaru. There's a Dodge Omni. There's a Neon, and Lord help you, there's a Caliber. So you've got a little bit of everything with all different kind of horsepower. There's a bunch of Ford Fiestas. Some are turbo, some aren't. And so you've got kind of the wide range of horsepower. Now we're starting to get a bunch of cars over from Europe. That. We've got a Skoda right now. It's quite powerful, and that's in an open kind of class. And so, yeah, it's really kind of the wide range. My car makes, without a restrictor and all that stuff, in the threes, 330, 340. And so, but I have a restrictor on it. So, it kind of cuts that down a little bit.
I've actually seen the Passport. That was at the Grid Life Colorado event last year, and it was such a strange thing to see because it's just a Passport. Like, it's an automatic bone stock Passport, but it's got this ridiculous cage in it, and it was they have like a sort of like a rally cross course set up at Pikes Peak International Raceway there, and there were some Honda drivers there just kind of putting on demos with that car that weekend, and it was surprisingly like well poised and stuff like that on the course. I was very surprised with how well it performed, given the fact that it was basically a stock Honda Passport.
Yeah, I actually raced against that car last year. It was pretty funny to see it, but that's kind of the fun thing. I mean, there was a guy that raced a Toyota RAV4, and it was automatic of all things.
You've piqued Robbie's interest, because Robbie is a RAV4 enthusiast.
Was it a 2-door or a 4-door?
Good question. I believe it was a 4-door, actually.
Okay. So the 2 doors, that's where
like
it's
a
at.
newer one, or like, are we talking mid 2000s or older?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a newer one.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan Millen. You can look it up. You'll find some old pictures.
I'm sure that Robbie will.
Yeah,
I will.
But that, like I said, that's kind of the fun thing, because you can have just about anything. There's a guy that has a Saab 96. There's a Toyota Starlet, if you even know what that is, and that's totally cool, like, fast little car. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
I follow a guy that has a Starlet. I think that he kind of bounces back and forth between living somewhere here in the Midwest and living somewhere in Europe. But he's got this Starlet. He actually brought it to a Grid Life event a few years ago and raced it on the road course. And he does he'll wrap that engine out to like 10,000 RPM or something crazy. And it's got like a sequential in it. And it's like the gnarliest little car I've ever seen. It was a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, it's funny. The guy that has the Saab 96 also has the Starlet. And he always jokes, like, he'll take the Saab out to a stage rally and people go nuts, right? Because it's just cool and old and fun. And he takes the Starlet out and people are like, And he's like, yeah, but you don't get it. Like, this is the badass car,
Yeah,
it's the sleeper, so... so you get a little bit of everything, and then you'll get a 2020 Subaru WRX, so you get as new and as old and everything in between.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. I think, being able to go to an event and then seeing everything, from new to old to basically stock to completely focused builds. It's because even like locally at the Rallycross here, it just seems like the variety of cars that show up to that is still pretty mind-blowing to me. Just the people that are like, I'll take my Camaro here. We'll figure this out.
Yeah, we have the same vibe here too. You're like, oh, Mustang, rear wheel. But it's true. And I think that's why, when we have the start of, the race and the fans come out and they can see it's kind of a little mini car show, people like it because they look like cars. I mean, they're literally, probably what you drive or have driven, somebody's racing it. And people really like that because they're like, if I like IndyCar and I like drag racing, but when I watch NHRA, that's not a car that I recognize. But in rally, they always say it's real cars, real fast. And that's basically what they are. A track day, you see the same corner 100 times or 500 times, right? But when you do a stage rally, you see just one corner, and you'll see 500 different corners. So it's not all about perfecting that one corner. It's trying to perfect all of these different corners, and they're all different.
Yeah, definitely. I think being able to going to like having to be like a car show and have like a kid come running up, he's like, "That's like your caliber." And you have one of those at home. I think that piques the interest real fast because now, mom and dad have a caliber at home, but now they're cheering for this caliber on track. So it just makes it real.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny too because I raced with Dodge. We did an endurance race called Targa Newfoundland, which is up in Canada. It's like a 5-day race, and we raced a Dodge Challenger there when Dodge introduced the Challenger to the market, and that was the same kind of thing. People were just like, "Oh my gosh, I used to have a Challenger, or I've got a '70 Challenger, or whatever," and people were so stoked, just something different.
Well, Adam sees that all the time with his Omni. I mean, if it's like, oh, yeah. I know so and so that had an Omni, just like, not just like, but like I had an Omni.
You get a lot of people who are, I mean, I'm mid-30s, so I'm still a little bit young for that car. But you get a lot of people who are like, say, 10 to 12 years older than me that are like, my parents had one of these when I was a little kid or whatever, and it's a topic starter. It doesn't hurt that it's got ridiculous wheels and it's caged and it looks insane. But
I think there's some Omnis for sale too. I mean, there was anyway.
Oh yeah,
so
there
be
always
careful.
are. They're like multiply. Really annoying. Oh, I have really tried to stay away from doing that. I've made a lot of friends in the Omni and front wheel drive Dodge community, and I think I'm the only one who's managed to not own more than one
yet.
Congratulations.
Why would you put that on me, Robbie?
Because
why would you do that?
Don't worry, I won't be the only one. The entire next week is going to be fans sending you Craigslist ads of Omnis for sale. That's the best.
That'll be Karen doing that because I know. Oh well, I'm pretty sure I know at least one Rally Omni that's for sale.
Oh, see, she fits in perfectly with our group.
So I'll totally tempt you. I've got the hookup.
Oh, you get friend pricing.
I already have
unfortunately, I don't own it, but
I already have one car that I have a hard time getting parts for because nobody makes it. I don't need to buy another car for a completely different racing discipline that I can't get parts for.
Fair.
I don't feel sorry for you on that one.
I'm sure you don't. Believe me when I say I feel your pain when it comes to having to find ways to make things work. So everybody wants to drag race Omnis, and I don't want to do that. So
yeah, well, and it's a so you're a Dodge guy. I mean, it's a tight community. Tight family.
Oh, absolutely. It's we've talked about that before, Robbie, and like with his 240SX Nissan community, and like the drastic difference between the group of people that I've met with my car versus the people he's met with his car. And I think it's just that like maybe it's an older crowd. It's certainly a smaller group, but I don't know if there's like a need to like make sure that these cars continue to be a thing, and so everybody's just like more relaxed and they're friendlier and they're more helpful. I don't know what it is, but they definitely are.
Yeah, it's just kind of a different vibe. I mean, I've raced in Subarus a long time, and I would say that Subaru kind of family is the same. They're like a very strong group, especially like the ambassador program and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of depends. There's good in everything, but I had a guy in Colorado that bought a Dodge Caliber SRT4 hood to put on his regular Caliber because he thought it would look really cool, not realizing it does not fit. So he reached out to me in Facebook last year and said, "Hey, I follow your racing and it's so, so cool. You're racing my, the car I have, and do you want this hood?" And I was like, well, I mean, I do hit things. I could use a hood occasionally, and they're really hard to find. And they're really expensive when you do find them, and you don't want to ship them, because they're super expensive. And so the guy actually gave me his hood. So, just people are nice. It's really super helpful. I'm a small team. I've got sponsors, but we're not like super funded, any of those kind of things. We do a lot with a little.
I would never have guessed that car is that drastically different from the base model.
Who knew? But it is.
Like I would have assumed that, I mean, obviously the engine's different, but I figured the rest of it was just a bolt-on appearance package, that any of that stuff would have been cross-compatible. That surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, some of it does, obviously, like I said, like the good stuff, fenders and things.
Doors.
And doors. Yeah, the tree, I needed a new door, so that was nice. But that's kind of where it ends.
So is that something you learned the hard way, or did you know going in like, okay, if I mess up this hood, there's only a few hundred out there?
Yeah, we knew.
Okay.
I mean, you don't do it on purpose.
No.
I mean, the tree was just trying to get the car under control and figure out how do you drive it when, okay, so mechanically I can't seem to get it dialed in. So how do I change my driving to make it a little bit better, and things like that. So if you don't test it out, you're never going to figure it out.
Let's take a step back because I have a picture up and you keep saying I hit a tree. But the picture that I'm picturing that everyone's seeing now on YouTube is the car upside down with a tree wrapped around the drive shaft. Is that what you're referring to when you said I hit a tree?
Well, I guess it was we hit a tree because there was more than one person in the car.
Yes, of course.
My co-driver Mitch Meadows is a great guy and maybe a little crazy because he keeps getting back in the car, But yeah, it was just kind of a weird, last corner on the road. Car went a little wide, trying to get it dialed in. Wasn't going super fast because it was the last corner, and the road was crowned. So that means when the car went a little wide and there was all of this weight, the road didn't hold. And so, the road kind of gave way, and me, my co-driver, and the car kind of went down this ravine with a couple of trees to greet us. Yes, there was some trees that we took along the way. The bad part of that story is 4 days later was our race.
Oh. So
it wasn't a really good time to do a lot of damage. And it really took a lot of people, a lot of friends, to help us. Lee Parsons is this really cool guy that helped do a lot of the body work. And like I said, my husband had to find new doors. We had to get a new windshield. The inside was great. So it's really solid wheel belt car, no problem. But, aesthetically it was, you kind of wanted to squint a little when we got it all together.
Well, yeah, it probably helps that you took a pretty slow corner and just kind of rolled off the corner rather than flying off the corner into a bunch of trees. So if it's
Which I've done, not myself, but as a co-driver, I've been a passenger of that multiple times.
Is that common? Have you how? Is that something you kind of expect to like with road racing? You're kind of like, if sometime I'm probably going to end up hitting a wall or a tire wall, or it's not if, it's when. Is in rallies it's kind of the same mentality?
Yeah, that's what they always say. There's those who've rolled and those that haven't yet. It's just a matter of time, and that's okay. I mean, as you're getting a little faster, in the conditions change so much that it's really unpredictable, so you're trying to be careful and you're trying to be tidy and you're trying to do all these things, but it's still like stuff happens.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had some pretty big offs, that I've been a passenger in. So, but the cars are really well built and they really keep you really super safe. So I always kind of joke, I'd rather be in an accident in a rally car, because you've got the wing seats. So it literally like kind of turns into a cocoon for you. It keeps you super safe. And Hans device and the belts to keep you in. And you got that roll cage to take, some of the energy from the impact in the car and all the things. And so, it's a pretty relatively safe place to be.
Yeah. I give my wife a hard time because she gets nervous when I'm on track. And I'm like, no, seriously. The chances of me dying driving to and from the track is much higher than me dying on the track.
Yeah.
It's kind of a morbid way of putting it, and she doesn't really appreciate that, but that's how I've always driving to work is more dangerous than driving at the track.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if something happens.
Yeah, for sure. So, have you had any injuries or anything like that, or have you been any of these rollovers like that? Or you just kind of brush yourself off and well, now I gotta get a new damn bumper.
I did get a pretty good concussion back. I think it was 2008 time frame. Maybe actually a little later, 2010. And so that wasn't great. But I've been very, very fortunate, knock on wood, with the rest of the accidents, just some bumps and bruises.
Well, that's good. That's refreshing to hear that it's not, it happens, like dangerous things happen, but it's not detrimental in any way.
Right. But you hope not.
Yeah, for sure. We're kind of becoming a full podcast here. So I got a few questions left. We can keep this wrapping up. So this season's kind of coming to an end. You said you had a couple things coming up this year. I know COVID's kind of thrown everything into a loop. I guess, what do you have planned for the rest of this year, and maybe even coming into next year?
Yeah, I mean, COVID has kind of really put a wrench in things. I've got a couple of track days scheduled for this month to get our Neon road race car kind of dialed in. And then next month, we've got a Lucky Dog race. That's kind of an endurance series that's out here that we're going to be doing at Portland International Raceway. And so that'll be fun. That's, one of those races you can have up to like 4 drivers to kind of share within the 2 days of racing. And then we have Olympus Rally. Olympus Rally was a World Rally Championship event, actually, way back when. And there's some of the most beautiful roads and very technical roads out there. So that's up in Olympia, Washington, and that's in November. And then everything else depends if we can make it over the Canadian border. At this point, we can't, but there's several events, that I'd love to do again, but it just kind of depends on that.
Makes sense.
And then next season, it kind of just depends on COVID a bit. I'd like to do at least as many events as I did last year, plus that many more in road racing. And there's enough races out here to do that. So to actually put a full program together and kind of get past the R&D part of that car and then move into actually doing a lot of racing in it. So that's the goal. And, Scrub Blade Wiper Blades, I just extended my contract with them, and they've been a long-term sponsor. They make like the best windshield wiper blades on the market. So, and then Rally, we definitely use that, and road racing as well, so, and Amsoil and Melee Design. So, I've got the partners that have been patient with COVID, and hopefully we get back to normal season next season.
Definitely. And I did not know what Scrub Blade was a thing, so now I need to.
Yeah, they're out of California. They've been around quite a few years, and they're a really great company. Not only do they make great wiper blades that actually scrub, so gets off all the bugs and all of that stuff and rain, but they also try to make the world a better place. They donate a bunch of money every year to children's hospitals. And they do a lot about replanting trees. So they're just a really great company that not only makes great products, but they also try to make the world a little better too.
Huh. Well, I know 4 cars at this house that need wiper blades. So
if you go onto their website, I've got a promo code. It's basically my team name, Jankowski Motorsports. 20% off right now and free shipping. So Perfect. Instead of waiting until it rains and then you realize, oh man, my wiper blades, they stink. You can go ahead and get them now and save some money and you're good to go.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. I guess one question I had is, so you're doing road rally, or not road rally, you're doing rally and then road racing. But I guess pie in the sky, best case scenario, what would be some of your long-term goals? So like, I don't know, are you into like Pikes Peak Hill Climb or Dakar or Baja 1000 or, some of these other crazy races? Is that something that kind of piques your interest, or I guess where do you see yourself taking Jankowski Motorsports?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the long-term goals for the Jankowski Motorsport team is it doesn't have to be me racing, so we've got, several cars, and we'd like to participate in more races and offer kind of a ride and drive program, for when I'm not, racing the car. But as far as events goes and things like that, I'd like to try some drag racing. I think that would be kind of, next step, fun thing to try. Love to try it. But I think, right now, at least over the next couple of years, I really want to focus on some road racing. because there's just so much to it. And there's so many tracks that are within driving distance for me. I'm very fortunate that, once you kind of master one track or one series, you can go into something else. So there's a lot of opportunities, and also do some hill climbs. So the Pacific Northwest actually has a pretty strong hill climb scene, and there are a lot of hill climbs out here. So I don't know about Pikes Peak. I've been there helping a team. I haven't competed. So, Pikes Peak would be fun, right? But in the short term, I'd like to do more of the hill climbs that are here local because they're fun, they're challenging, and we've got a lot of different kind of surfaces and variety as far as the different ones as well.
Hill climb seems like it would kind of fall right into your wheelhouse already. I feel like that'd be very similar skill sets to what you have.
Yeah, I think so. And so I think that would be definitely a lot of fun. And, I don't know that I've got a car in the garage right now to do that, but who knows?
I don't see why the Neon couldn't do it.
It'd be fine.
There is like no racing that I like dream of more than hill climbing. I want to do it so badly, and we live in like the flattest part of this country, and it's just not a thing around here. There's one that's like a few hours away, like maybe 6 or 7 hours away, and last year the fastest time of the event was a 20-second run, and I just can't justify driving that far for that short of a course. So it's like, oh, man.
It depends on how many runs you get, and it is kind of a fun scene. We're starting to get more tarmac rallies in the U.S. So in Kentucky, which obviously is far for you, but Kentucky's now has their second one this year. It's in September, and so that's kind of interesting too. Instead of being on gravel and dirt like we normally are, we've getting more and more tarmac events.
That would be interesting to do. I could get my head around that. And that, I feel like, is slightly more accessible because I assume it's probably not quite as hard on cars.
I wouldn't assume that.
I could be wrong, I guess. I don't know.
Trees are trees.
I suppose, but there's no jumps in tarmac racing. Or, well, less, I would assume.
Less, yes, yeah. But yeah, the whole hill climb thing, there are quite a few events. The team that I've been racing with last couple of years, we were signed up to do Mount Washington hill climb.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we're accepted, all ready to go. And then dang it, COVID hits. So that would be a fun one. I haven't been to that event yet or competed in it.
That one is most, if not all, gravel, isn't it?
Well, that's a good question. I think mostly, yeah.
I know at least some of it is. It might be all of it. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, that one's kind of unique in this country, I think, being that it's not all paved anymore.
Yeah, like Pikes Peak, unfortunately, is pretty much
right.
paved.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You should do it.
That one's a long ways away. That's because isn't that East Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's closer for me than you, I suppose, but
yeah, for sure.
Well, I think we got a podcast. If there's anything you want to cover, Adam or Karen, or we can definitely go wherever you want to go from here. But otherwise, I've run out of questions.
I think I'm good. Pretty well answered most of the questions I've had, so I'm sure there'll be a ton of things I think of afterwards. But
oh yeah.
That's how it goes.
That just means we have to do a follow-up podcast.
There you go.
And we absolutely can do that for sure. Once you guys kind of get into it. I just wanted to kind of educate you guys on rally, kind of talk to you about what's it like racing a Caliber and kind of get you excited about, the whole rally thing. But, I'd say, like I said, if you have any interest, look into American Rally Association or NASA Rally, see what events are in your area and go volunteer because it doesn't cost anything and you get to see the cars up close and personal and then you learn about it and you get to meet, the drivers and co-drivers and teams. And so it's kind of a great way to get involved without spending any money, and then who knows, maybe you'll build a rally car.
Most likely will.
or an Omni.
Or an Omni.
I just need an Omni
Which
that
has been
runs
done.
again. I just need an Omni that runs again. That's key right now.
It's
Mine's been
good luck.
broken for an extended period of time. So
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's been definitely a pleasure.
yeah, it's been a pleasure for us. Where can listeners find you?
Pretty easy. Facebook, Jankowski Motorsports, and then on Twitter is Rally Racer, and Instagram is Karen Jankowski.
Perfect. I will try to link those, or at least I'll tag you in everything I do on Instagram, so that'll at least be a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has questions, hit me up. I'm very accessible and always happy to kind of share, what rally is.
Perfect. Well, I'd say you're a pretty awesome ambassador for the sport. You've been
Thank you.
very easy to work with for getting on the show. We've been playing message tag for a few weeks. I think this is the longest we've had somebody scheduled out ever, just because it's been such a weird year. But I appreciate you working with your schedule into ours and being on the show. This has been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot about rally.
yeah.
Good. Mission accomplished.
Well, then we will catch.
And I'll start sending you those Omni ads right away.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh no.
All right. We'll catch the listeners next week.